What would you do if you came face to face with something that shouldn't exist? Tonight, I'm bringing you 3 real encounters that will make you question everything you thought you knew about the world. These aren't urban legends or campfire tales passed down through generations. These are first-hand accounts from ordinary people who stumbled upon the extraordinary and lived to tell about it. Let's begin with our first story, set in the pristine wilderness of northern Maine, where one family's encounter would change their camping traditions forever. In Aroostook County, Maine, pretty much as far north as you can get, there is a stream that feeds off of a lake that eventually dumps into the St. John River. We get dropped off at a bridge that crosses this stream and spend a couple days drifting down to the St. John River fishing and camping, and then we get picked up where the stream ended. This is in the middle of nowhere, about as pristine of a wilderness as you can get. At dusk on day 2, we had set up on this island that splits the stream. The water was pretty low and we'd have to portage around the island anyway, as it was way too rocky to canoe down this little stretch. We got camp set up and a fire started just before dusk. My parents were cooking up dinner alongside a couple nice fat brook trout we had caught early in the day. My sister and I were just fooling around throwing rocks in the stream. Suddenly our mom called us over in a little bit of a panicked voice. We saw instantly why. Our dad was standing with a stranger a little way from our camp. The man was pretty short, like 5 feet 3 inches, white in complexion, had a bushy wild beard, and was wearing clothes that looked like they were made from burlap sacks. He was leaning on a musket like a walking stick. He had a backpack of sorts made from what looked like a burlap sack and some sticks tied together. He had animal furs rolled up on top of the backpack. He looked as shocked to see us as we were of him. He sounded like he was speaking French, but my mother, who could speak some French, could maybe understand 1 word out of 10. He pointed at us and then behind himself and kept saying something along the lines of Tattoosac. My mother pointed at him and asked if he was from Quebec or Canada, and he just looked confused. He seemed to be really interested in my father's jacket. He also seemed really interested in our camp and kept pointing at our tents and canoes and was definitely asking us questions, but we had no idea what he was saying. Eventually my dad, who was already be weary of this guy, motioned him to go away. My mother was doing like a go away motion with her hand and saying leave in French, and he seemed to get the message. He waded through the knee-high water off the little island to the other side and just disappeared. Like as soon as he hit the other side, he just vanished, with all of us looking at him. We were all pretty freaked out at this point. My mother was like, let's pack up and go right now. My dad convinced her to just stay the night, as moving camp and portaging in the dark isn't the best idea. My dad said he would stay awake until dawn to keep watch in an effort to comfort us all. Plus, he had his pistol with him. We were all just talking about how absolutely weird this whole situation was when my sister said, yeah, and he had no shoes on. Just a bunch of like leather. The whole situation just freaked us out. To this day, we have no idea what we saw. It wasn't a ghost or anything, as this guy was clearly trying to communicate with us and was clearly aware of us. We had gone on this same camping trip 3 times. That was the last time per my mother's orders. When I moved into the international student apartment during my 2 years abroad, I expected culture shock, maybe some homesickness. I didn't expect ghosts. Everything began when one of my roommates, who lived alone in a 2-bedroom, casually mentioned seeing the shadow of another person at night. She kept telling me it looked like a person lying on the other bed, breathing, sleeping. I didn't think much of it then, but the weirdness didn't stop there. During one of our evening get-togethers, a guy from another room suddenly screamed, startling all of us. He was pale and visibly shaken, claiming he had just seen a girl with long, dark hair peeking around the corner of my roommate's room. More stories followed by many different people who had visited us. Whispers of breathing in empty rooms. Footsteps in the kitchen when no one was there. Some weeks later, the girl I shared a room with asked me one morning, "Did you hear that last night?" She claimed she had heard breathing, some kind of snoring, and shuffling noises coming from the living room. Since she was rarely home, I assumed she had heard stories from the others and was now just trying to spook me. Basically, I stayed skeptical until it happened to me. It occurred one afternoon, before it even got dark. My roommates were either in class or out, and the front door was locked. I was alone in my room, eating early dinner and video calling my mom. While I was talking about my day, I suddenly heard strange sound coming from the living room and froze. A faint shuffle, a low, steady, but somehow loud breathing. "Do you hear that?" I asked my mom. I suddenly understood what my roommate must have been talking about. My mom couldn't hear anything on the call and insisted I go check. As it sounded like someone had just opened the fridge, I really didn't want to leave my room. My mom kept telling me not to be ridiculous and to open the door. After some back and forth, I finally got up, slowly opened my door, and peeked into the living room. Suddenly, everything was calm, silent and peaceful. The noise had stopped. Feeling a bit braver, I walked around the apartment, checked all the rooms, and made sure the front door was still locked. Satisfied, I went back to my room and shut the door. I looked at my mom, still on the video call, and it was an expression that scared me more than anything. She calmly said, "So? I guess that wasn't a black-haired roommate who just walked by right into the room." She had seen someone while I had been checking the rooms. I left right away to wait for my roommates outside. Long story short, one of my roommates eventually decided to tell one of our teachers. By then, all of us were on edge. The teacher's response? A deep sigh, as though this wasn't the first time she'd heard something like it. "Oh, some years ago, 4 girls died in a fire in the room directly above yours. Maybe that's why." We looked it up. There are still news articles online about the fire, and about their deaths.
Hi everyone, this happened to me like 5 years ago when I was 20 years old. It was my mother's birthday and she wanted to have a big party with all of her friends in a house our family has near a famous Mexican volcano. At around 10 o'clock my mom told me that she and some of her friends were going to the forest to share scary stories and asked me if I wanted to go, and of course I said yes. We walked for about 15 minutes in the dark and stopped at a little cliff. Don't really know how to describe it. We were on top of a dirt path and there was another path like that but down a couple meters from us, and there was just a lamp post down there which was the only light source near us. I faced them in that path and they faced a wall behind me, and I started preparing to tell the story when I see movement down there on that path, and I warned my mom about it. She and a couple of her friends looked back and we all saw a small and strange creature. I'm not really sure how to describe it, but it was like a meter tall, stood on 2 legs, had 2 normal goat-like legs and the other 2 were really tiny, like a T-Rex. His head was tiny and also goat-shaped with horns but with more human features on the face mostly, and his torso was really short, like it almost had none, and his legs were 80% of his body. It saw us and started to walk away but stopped sometimes to watch us over its shoulder with curiosity, I assume because of its body language, and then a dog came out of nowhere and started chasing it away and they went into the dark. We immediately decided to go to another less scary place and didn't really talk about that strange encounter. We eventually returned to the house and then my mom said something like, "Everyone who saw the creature draw it on a piece of paper so we can compare." Everyone did, and it was the same drawing on everyone's paper. Around 10 people saw it, including children and adults. To this day we have no idea what that was. If these stories gave you chills, if they made you question what's really out there in the darkness, then hit that subscribe button and join our community of truth seekers. We're always searching for more encounters like these. And if you have a story of your own, something unexplained that happened to you or someone you know, I want to hear it. Send your story to the email in the description below. Your encounter could be featured in our next video, and who knows, maybe your story will be the one that finally provides some answers to these enduring mysteries. Until next time, keep your eyes open. You never know what might be watching you from the shadows.